Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Haley Carlson from Crain's Chicago Business, and I am so glad you could join us today to learn more about the Chicago Leadership Circle. We are proud to be a part of this powerful community that brings together purpose-driven professionals who care deeply about leadership, impact, and the future of Chicago. If you're here, you are likely someone who wants to grow personally while making a difference, and you're in the right place. Today's session will give you a clear picture of what the CLC is all about, from program structure to the real-world experiences of our fellows. You'll hear from our partners, meet some amazing alumni, and have time to ask your questions. First, to kick us off, I'd like to turn it over to Jim Kirk, president of Crain City Brands and publisher of Crain Chicago Business. Jim?
Thank you, Haley, and welcome everyone. And thank you for your interest in the Chicago Leadership Circle. This really is truly a unique partnership between the Graham School at the University of Chicago and, of course, Crain Chicago Business. The goal of the program is simple, really to give executives a better understanding and help shape and engage with the region's economic and community development. We like to believe that with this program, we fill some of the gaps in an executive's journey that don't come with the day-to-day work at our jobs. We really aim for this to be fulfilling on a number of different levels, giving you a deeper understanding of the economic and social issues really affecting Chicago's future. The CLC is really where business policy and purpose meet. You'll hear more about that throughout this program. And at its essence, the Graham School and Crain's come together to really combine the deep knowledge base within the university with Crain's respected journalism to bring together conversations, speakers, thoughtfully curated program, really to elevate and enhance an executive's journey. And as a journalist and head of Crain's, I have to say this is one of the most extraordinary programs we do. Our North Star here at Crain's, and it really permeates everything we do, is to help business leaders succeed. This program is the essence of that mission. And again, we're really glad you're here with us today to hear more about it. With that, I will hand it over to Seth from the University of Chicago and a great partner of ours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jim. We are thrilled to be partners with Crain's. We feel incredibly fortunate for your journalism for our region. And we are grateful to be in a shared mission of advancing the city's future economic and community prosperity. And so it is my joy to share a program overview. And then most importantly, I'll have a conversation with two of the fellows who just finished this program about their experience. So let me just start by sharing what this is all about. This is about a community of executives who want to better understand, shape, and engage with the region's economic and community development. And the context, and this comes out of a conversation between Jim and I years ago, is that we really believe that business and social connection is vital to the future of our community and our city's economic prosperity. And we worry that we don't have the same formative opportunities that we did a generation ago for individuals who want to be both business and civic leaders. And so we wanted to combine the intellectual assets of our two institutions to really energize a pathway for those who are inclined to leverage their leadership for the betterment of their business or company or institution and the future of Chicago. And so there are three specific goals that we have for this program. We want to inspire executives to understand and confront systemic economic, social, and community challenges. We want to investigate potential approaches and solutions. And if you know anything about the University of Chicago and Crain's, we like to present you with lots of different ideas and let you decide what you think is the best one. And then we wanted to connect our faculty at the university and journalists at Crain's with the next generation of responsible business and community leaders. And the approach of this program is that we give you three lenses on the world. We give you an academic lens from the university, and that's typically a global lens. So we'll look at an issue like public safety, and a leader from our crime lab will come in and not just talk about Chicago, they'll talk about what's happening in New York and Los Angeles and Hong Kong and elsewhere around the world. And they'll look at this issue from a scholarly angle in terms of what does the data say? What are the different potential solutions? A journalistic lens, reporters who are on the ground here in Chicago, who are bringing these insights, and they go beyond the headlines, and they're giving you access to the insights that they have, much of which can't always make the page. And so they're able to give you that long form opportunity to see into the same issues that they do. And then we build together a network of practitioners who a lot of the Crain's journalists are interviewing and a lot of our faculty are engaging with to really bring that applied perspective from both business, social, and public sectors to make sure that we're able to give you a holistic 360 perspective on these issues. All of this, I should say, is led by an outstanding instructor, Michael Fashnot, who has a background both as a business leader and then as a civic leader while being the president and CEO of World Business Chicago, and now back to being a business leader. We are proud to call him our distinguished instructor for the program. And it is informed by extraordinary people from across the three lenses that I mentioned. So on this screen, you will see some of Crain's journalists like John Pletz, a senior reporter at Crain's Business Chicago. You will see a lot of the practitioners. So Sierra Boatwright, the commissioner of the Chicago Department of Planning and Development, Juan Salgado, the chancellor of our city colleges, Z. Scott, the president of our Chicago State University, Elizabeth Buchanan, the head of the North American business for Nielsen IQ. You see a number of our faculty here, such as Robert Vargas, instructor and professor of sociology at the University of Chicago. You see political leaders, Andre Vasquez, the alderman from the 40th Ward. So what you see is all of the different types of people that come in and both teach or visit with the fellows to make sure that we're bringing you all of these different lenses alongside Michael's vision of weaving all of these different weeks together to build a coherent whole. So that's an overview of the idea of this program. And I'll just close my snapshot by saying that the most meaningful part is that all of this happens in community. And so here is the wonderful community of fellows that finished the last cohort with us. And we're now going to meet two of them. And so I'm going to take down my screen here and I'm going to add spotlights. I have Leslie already on screen and we'll get Erin up here as well. There we go. Hello, Erin. Hello, Leslie. And we're excited to talk with them about their experience. And so just to get us started, I'm hoping each of you can share the kind of 60-second introduction to yourself, your kind of professional background, and why you decided to be part of the Chicago Leadership Circle. And Leslie, can we start with you?
Sure. Thank you so much, Seth. My name is Leslie Roth. I'm a principal at the Lamar Johnson Collaborative. We are a full service architecture and design firm and a part of the Clayco enterprise, which Clayco is a large national general contractor. I lead our urban design and planning group. I am also a licensed architect. And so where there's an integrated component of the vertical build and horizontal, I lead those efforts. I have been practicing for about 25 years. I've practiced domestically and internationally and have spent most of my career in Chicago.
Great. Thank you, Leslie. And can I ask what led you to interest in Chicago Leadership Circle?
Oh, wow. So, in architecture and planning, we are one of those professions that deals with or interacts with or integrates with a variety of other aspects of the Chicago ecosystem. We work with attorneys, we work with accountants, we work with private and public developers and the real estate community as a whole. But we really don't have an opportunity to dig into what those intersections look like. And we don't have an opportunity to meet folks that are outside of sort of our areas of expertise or because we are subject matter experts in the built environment. So I was really excited about this opportunity because of the opportunity to grow my network and have conversations that were going on to help my kind of worldview of the city of Chicago ecosystems. So in our cohort, Seth, as you mentioned, there were experts from a wide variety of other disciplines that I had less exposure to prior to the program, and found that it really enriched the way that I saw the city, and broaden my network in terms of who I could call on or who became a resource after the program. So really excited to, I was really excited to understand new tools and resources. And as we, urban development is a really challenging, ever-moving um, uh, uh, opportunity to do better in the city. So being able to have a greater positive impact on our city and especially our neighborhoods was another reason why I decided to participate.
Wonderful. Thank you, Leslie. And I mean, Leslie represents the majority of the cohort who came from the private sector in Chicago, but we are very grateful that this is a tri-sector cohort, and we had a number of people from the social and public sector as well. And one of those is Erin Steva, who is from the Chicago State University. And can you just talk about your leadership role there, a bit about your background and what drew you, Erin, to CLC?
Absolutely. Thank you. It's great to have this great broad cross-section of folks thinking about the program. I had a tremendous experience. Erin Steva, Vice President of External Affairs and Strategic Initiatives. And so my portfolio is broad. It includes communications and marketing, government affairs, community engagement, a Center for Workforce Equity, a Center for Education Equity, and then recently a economic development plan for the institution. And so that dovetails into what brought me to this program. It was that my responsibilities as it related to community development had been growing. I had been doing workforce development and corporate partnerships for a long time, but the institution is moving forward on a multi-use development plan, and I knew that I needed to deepen my partnerships with other stakeholders in that section. I also say that I have a track record of participating in fellowship programs because I know, for the same reasons that Leslie shared, that this is a relationship game. And so it's very important to have a broad cross-section of folks that I have a deep relationship with. And I find that it's hard in the day-to-day work to get a personal relationship with someone. So I really appreciated having ongoing space to connect with other stakeholders. And the other reason I was excited to be in this is I have also done Leadership Greater Chicago, which is another fellowship program in the area. And I thought an element that was missing from that experience was the media angle. And so I really appreciated that Crain's was obviously co-hosting this and bringing that perspective to the conversations.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for being fellows. And now we want to jump into your fellowship experience. And so the first question I have is how this shaped your lens on Chicago and its future, because our goal is to put before you lots of different ideas provocatively to kind of challenge the way you may think about it. And so I'm curious if you could share any ways in which this shaped or changed your thinking, and then maybe if you could even speak to where were those aha moments coming from, if you remember the faculty member or journalist or practitioner that was speaking and how that led you to a new lens on Chicago. And Leslie, can we come back to you to start?
Sure, of course. So, all of us read Crain's either, cover to cover or every once in a while. And the rumor mill in Chicago is vast. So you hear about all these things happening, policies, development projects, the Bears leaving, all this stuff. And as sort of informed professional residents of the city, you don't really, you kind of read the headline and then you go back to work, and I really loved this program because you get to talk about those things. One of those aha moments was we got into conversations about the parking meter deal, attorneys and folks that were intimately involved in this thing that is notorious, in Chicago. Whatever side you're on, if you thought it was great or you thought it was terrible, but I never really understood how complex it was to do that and what the context was surrounding that deal. And there were many moments like that where the subject matter experts that were brought in, or the cohort participants themselves shared their professional experience around these sort of headlines that you saw, that I've seen throughout my professional career, and was never really able to dig into the like, well, what do you mean and how did that happen? And that was one of the things that I really liked about this program was the access to folks who were a part of those really, those um, policies and actions that really changed the face and experience of the city of Chicago. There were a few moments that, a few sessions that I took lots of notes on each one of them because each session there were just like nuggets of really great information. But the first session, the orientation, when we had representatives from the crime lab and just understanding the landscape of Chicago and the data that the University of Chicago had collected and how it was synthesized, and being able to dig into sort of what that meant for how the physical landscape of the city was shaped was absolutely fascinating to me. And a number of our cohort, Aaron will remember this, afterwards we're like, can we get that presentation? Are there going to be more lectures like this? So that was a really exciting part of the leadership circle for me, especially when you walk into a cohort and you're like, oh, I know all the stuff that's been going. I grew up in Chicago, or I've lived here for 20 years. And there were so many times that it was just brand new. I was today years old when I learned it. So that was an excellent part for me.
Wonderful. And Erin, can we ask you the same question? How did it shape your lens on Chicago?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think part of the power of the program, like Leslie shared, is the breadth of topics and the knowledge that the different speakers have. I will also say that Michael Fosnot is a fantastic moderator. He's just like thought a lot about dynamics in our region. And so the commentary and questions that he brought forward to both the subject matter experts, but also the group were really powerful. And I thought the other piece that allowed us to go deeper than the headlines was the back and forth that came from those who were there. They are also experts in their own right. And so the back and forth that would happen between the fellows and the guest presenters was really important. One example that stood out to me was actually also the parking meter conversation. And one of the fellows in our group had overseen related work in privatizing the parking lots that are underneath Millennium Park. And there was rich debate around the merits of that decision and what brought the group to, or the city to ultimately decide to do what it did. And she was the lawyer that was handling the legal transactions. And she raised a number of points that I think would have been very difficult to be exposed to if not for a program like this. And so much of the work that we do doesn't allow us to dig deeper than the headlines. And in order to do effective work, it's helpful to have a in-depth understanding of the landscape. And I think all of those pieces packaged together allowed us to really understand issues that in a way you can't otherwise appreciate.
Well, I'm so glad to hear those observations, and not just because I think parking meters are fascinating, like the two of you, but also because I think the details are so vital to really making good decisions. And sometimes we can get into our ideological, worlds and just think about these things as, right or wrong, left or right. And I think a lot of times it is in these subtleties and context that you find your own viewpoint. And one of our real hopes for this program is to bring you deep enough that it could really inform your thinking at a level that might be even beyond, so to speak, our initial viewpoints of whether this is right or wrong. So that's a great example because I think it speaks to one of the hopes of the program is to be at that level of depth and that level of proximity and intimacy with the people that make decisions for the future of Chicago. One element that we'll talk about when we get into the details of the program that Conway will present on is you have these monthly meetups and you're looking at different topic areas. And the aim of all this is to come to a capstone where you then are taking all this information in and applying it toward what we sometimes call a simultaneous solve, where you're thinking about what could actually solve a goal for my institution, right? A business goal, a university goal, and could be positive for the future of Chicago because there's a gap as we look at the future economic and community development. And I can help my company while also contributing. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about each of your capstones. Leslie, can we start with you? What was your
Sure.
capstone project?
So my capstone project really focused on the intersectionality between all of the different ecosystem thematic topic areas that were covered um, during each one of those sessions. So I wasn't ambitious in my approach at all. But as you know, as an architect and planner, I realize that we touch on many of those ecosystems regularly. And so I wanted to focus my capstone on what those intersections were to define them. You know, what does it look like when you put economic development and transportation together? What does, safety and, land use, what is that relationship? What does it mean? And throughout the course of each one of the seminars, we learned a little bit about each one. And through the aggregate of each one of these lectures, there were gaps in how panelists talked about their particular subject matter, but also sort of blind spots in that area, right? Areas that we could improve, ways that we could have better impact. I thought a lot about what equitable development looks like and what are the barriers to change and implementation, and how each one of us from each one of our kind of siloed sectors could potentially participate, or areas of expertise could potentially participate in the development of you know way more aspirational, higher functioning solutions to achieve those goals, to achieve the goal of creating a more equitable, safe, city. And so I first took a look at analyzing what we learned, and which areas of the ecosystem, each one of those independent ecosystems we covered, and then identified where the intersections were and where the gaps were, and defined a series of right fit solutions, defining barriers to actual implementation, which sometimes are getting people to the table and sometimes it's dollars. So by acknowledging what those right fit solutions were, you could say like the low hanging fruit costs nothing. So let's have a convening and get folks to the table to develop solutions. Or, let's get people to the table and come up with something that's, really quite expensive and could be a multi-year investment that gets us to solutions that have a very, very large benefit and impact. So, there's been a few projects in the city that have started down this path, but that intersectionality of topic areas was something that was really fascinating to me, and I focused my capstone on that.
Well, and the win for Chicago there is self-evident. If we can make those improvements and really capitalize on those low-hanging fruit opportunities, the win for LJC, I assume, is that you're presenting a better possibility to clients. You're winning more project proposals because you're able to now offer more than just the architecture and design. You're fitting that into a broader plan that has even greater amplification benefits. Is that a fair way to think about it?
Absolutely. And the motto of our company is integrated by design. So I kind of had to be like on theme with the way that with the way that I approach this. Yes, but a more holistic approach has a greater benefit and bigger impact, more positive impact. And so for LJC, as the design firm that is a part of a contractor, that is a part of the city of Chicago, this is a unique way of approaching projects that does offer value to our clients, but also, create some thought leadership around creative solutions. We find that, and all of you know this on the call today, that, our communities are not created equally and do not have equal access to resources. And so part of what these solutions do is create a framework for participation and accessibility to specifically design and construction solutions, which is my area of expertise, that they may have not had access to, by reframing the question and posing solutions that that remove barriers to even engaging in the conversation. It allows our company and our design approach and the way that we approach these types of projects, it's to be more accessible. It opens the doors to possibility and creative solutions.
Wonderful. Well, Erin, no pressure, but Leslie just named a capstone that delivered directly on the brand promise of her company, that advances the future of Chicago and does so at a systemic level. What was your capstone about?
So mine was similarly mission aligned, although perhaps not as perfectly so as Leslie's. So my capstone was focused on how to use development to drive closing the racial wealth divide in the city. So we're Illinois' only four-year predominantly Black institution. That's a Department of Education designation. So we have embraced the unique responsibility that comes with that to drive wealth and educational attainment for the city and state's African American communities. And there were a number of concepts that were explored throughout the fellowship program that I thought could be directly applied to work that I was leading for this University Village 95 project that I'm leading. And so I mapped out the process that I could use to identify how I could maximize the University Village 95 project to drive wealth creation in the Roseland and broader Southside community within which the institution resides. So I identified many different strategies that had been discussed, including a co-op model for the businesses that would be in the commercial space, as well as the stakeholders that I should bring together and the questions that should be explored to create a strategic plan and a path forward for driving wealth creation with the project.
Wonderful. Well, so we've covered how this matters to your institution, how this matters to Chicago. I want to ask one more, the selfish question in this, which is, how has this advanced your leadership, your platform, your ability to accomplish your goals? Obviously, they're intertwined with your institution, but I'm curious for kind of how you see your own growth and how this may continue to inform your growth as you look to the future. Leslie, can we start with you again?
Yeah, I mean, just, on its face, having more awareness about the different ecosystems and the subject matter experts in the city of Chicago is huge. Having access to, Crain's, to the University of Chicago resources, and most importantly, the growth of my network by knowing fabulous people like Erin and others, and really feeling like when that there's more support than you thought was out there. And sometimes this work gets hard when we're trying to do better for the city of Chicago and the people that live here, and knowing that there is a foundation and there's a group of folks, and now there's been a few cohorts of folks who are, from a mission perspective and values perspective, aligned with the type of work that we're all trying to do. It really makes those challenges seem feasible and plausible to face. Also from a professional level, it's not just the resources, but it's also really opened my eyes to the amount of data that is out there that is available to support defensible strategies and creative outcomes for a whole bunch of different kinds of projects. It's also really exciting that the University of Chicago and Crain's have that they convened such a diverse group of professionals. I couldn't have found people in my cohort if I would have tried through LinkedIn. So just personally knowing that, hearing different perspectives and opinions, and getting a better understanding of what those intersections mean, and who the folks are that are behind creation and maintenance of those ideas was something that I found, immeasurably important.
Erin, final words?
Yeah, I'll add +1, all the themes that Leslie shared. I am actually applying the capstone to my work now. So I think the space to reflect on this idea and to think on it alongside those experts who presented on it, I don't know if I would have been as well positioned to start to bring together these elements that I need to help drive the work forward. So capstone is now a work in progress, and excited to see where that work takes me.
Well, this has been a wonderful discussion. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Conway, who's going to go through the details, and then we're going to come back to Q&A with Leslie and Erin. So stay tuned and let me share my screen again so that you can see what's ahead here. We've just done the alumni spotlight. There we go. We are on to the program details, and Conway, I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is J.M. Conway, and I, along with Michael Fosnot, join the fellows each month to help guide them through the program. So if you join us in the fall, you'll hear lots from me to keep you abreast of all of the happenings in the program and to be one of your guides as you move through. So we'll head to the next slide here. So just so you know, we are an in-person cohort. We meet once a month for the academic year. We've expanded the program now to be a 9-month program. Outside of our first kickoff session, which is in the University of Chicago Hyde Park campus, we host our sessions from 4 to 7 at the Gleacher Center downtown, just off of the river. Each session includes an opening lecture from UChicago faculty, a panel of Crain's journalists and skilled practitioners who are experts on the topic, and then space and time for the cohort itself to really grapple with the ideas of the day, to bring in their own expertise from their career experiences, and to have rich conversations to really kind of help drive home that information. And then where we can fit them in, we have site visits and other opportunities, including many social opportunities for the cohort to not just be together in that kind of rich academic conversation and reflection, but also to build those social and networking relationships. The next slide is just going to give you our calendar for the year. So it is the cadence that we meet primarily on the first Thursday of every month, except for the first Thursday of the new year. We move it to the January 8th instead of meeting on the 2nd right after the new year. This just gives you an opportunity to see what some of those dates are. We do like for fellows to be at all of the sessions, but of course we understand that life and travel and work happens. And so if you are looking at this and you already recognize a date that won't work for you, just because you can't make all of them doesn't mean you can't participate, although we do ask that you give it that this does work for your calendar generally. The next slide will show you the topics that we cover. This is not in the order that we will cover them this year, but just to give you an idea, we start off that first day, which the kickoff day is a full day of time together where you get to start the learning, but we also start that relationship building process on that day as well. So we go through quite a bit. We look at Chicago through its history, politics, and business cultures. When we move into Chicago's economy, we talk about the built environment, real estate, and transportation. We go into education, public safety, public and private partnerships. We talk about business and civic leadership in Chicago. We think about strategic visioning and systems thinking to try to pull those threads of all of the different topics together so that they can inform the capstone presentations, which is always our final gathering for the year. outside of any alumni gatherings we may have. Just a little bit about the capstone. So the capstone is a project where fellows envision a specific initiative or project that simultaneously advances the aims of their company and the city's economic and community development goals. So you just heard from Erin and Leslie how they approached their capstones for the year. It's a 5 to 7 minute presentation. And we kind of give the fellows free rein on how they want to present. Some folks will do a handout and talk. Some folks will do a lecture. Many will do a PowerPoint presentation or some kind of tech presentation to go along with their idea. And then you'll present for a few moments, and then we open the floor for the other fellows in the room to make comment, to provide observation into the capstone project so that they can refine the idea. But our hope is that these are projects that can grow legs well after the program year is over and actually go out and be able to do some good in the region. So you'll present on a matter, issue that matters to you, to your institution, or to the future of Chicago. You'll think through how what you've learned throughout the course of the program can be used to address those issues, and then what you'll do, or what you or your institution will do to try to address that issue in a meaningful and sustainable way. Okay, yes, perfect. So the application for the Chicago Leadership Circle, this third cohort, is now open. And we are asking for those applications to be turned in by August 15th. In addition to filling out that application, what we ask for there is for just a link to your LinkedIn profile to share a little bit about your professional experience. And then the application has a few questions where we ask you about what you think are some of the challenges in the city, some of the opportunities in the city, and how a program like this could enhance your capacity to lead in these areas. The program price is $9,500, and in the application, if finances are a barrier to your participation, there is a space there where you can let us know and be considered for scholarship funding. I think that may, yes, be the end of those final details about the program. And so now what we want to do is have your questions and be able to answer any questions you might have about the program.
Conway, there's one question in the chat here asking about the size of the cohort.
Absolutely. Last year we were 19. This year, I think we're hoping to be 26, I believe.
We'll be between 25 and 30 this year.
Yeah.
Other questions that you have, and feel free to use the React function to raise your hand. We'll also right now set up so that you can unmute directly if that's your preferred way of asking. And then finally, you can put it into the chat if you have any questions. So you're with infinite possibilities of how to ask if you have a question.
I did get a question here. Is there a certificate of completion for the program? Yes, there is. You do receive a certificate of completion from the University of Chicago.
And we should acknowledge that to receive that, you are intended to be at 7 of the 9 sessions and then to successfully complete the capstone. So it is a certification, but very true to the University of Chicago and Crain's. We do have standards for that certification to ensure that you've completed the program. And this past year, to be clear, everyone received that certificate. So it was something that was successfully completed.
There's another question here, Conway. I work in community development in Austin neighborhood of Chicago. Can I still participate? because this is major regarding networking, and yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe Erin, if you want to speak at all to, and maybe Leslie, you can speak from the other side, this idea of the tri-sector and how each of you benefit, because I do think there are almost different benefits, although they're just kind of the other end of the mirror in many ways. But do you want to just talk about the tri-sector value of the program, Erin first, and then Leslie?
Absolutely. So I did find myself learning from, all of the participants in the program, in part because we come at the work from different vantage points, both from the not-for-profit public sectors as well as the private sector side. So I do think that is part of what drove us going deeper in our learnings, because we had all tackled similar projects, but from different perspectives.
Yeah, I agree with,
Anything that
I definitely agree with Erin. I think that you know, having those unique perspectives kind of gave me a better, well-rounded view of each one of those challenges or opportunities. And also understanding impact, because each one of those kind of private, public, or nonprofit sectors are affected differently by things like funding or policy or the regulatory environment. And so being better informed was one of the, I think, great qualities about having those unique perspectives in the room.
We have a question here from Raji about how large a business needs to be. That is considered on an individual basis, not just on where you are today, but where you want to head in the future. We do think it's important that you have a meaningful influence on Chicago, but that could also be based on your vision for the future, where you want to head, and it can also be based partly on your experiences to date. Because what we want in the cohort is the ability to interact across that real significance and impact for the future of the city. So I know Conway would be glad to talk to you individually about your situation and whether or not that might be a fit. To Robin's question here on the application selection process, it is a partnership between Crain's and UChicago, so those decisions are made jointly by a selection committee. I should say that, there is a cohort composition that we aim towards. So there is kind of individual assessment, but then we are taking into account how do we build a cohort where all of these different perspectives are represented, so that if you're talking about, for example, safety, you have a bunch of business leaders, you have people that are at university, at some of the civic institutions, at the government, and really building that set of lenses across the cohort. So there's individual assessment, and then there's a look at, okay, based on all of these applications, how do we select a group that is going to learn the most from each other, so that we have not only the incredible faculty, but the amplification of those ideas through the cohort mechanism. We have another question here around the alumni community of practice. And Leslie and Erin are just joining this, but maybe we'll come to you in a moment to talk about just how the cohort remains in touch with one another, because I know there remains activity. But Conway, do you want to talk about the alumni community and how people continue to be invited back to future opportunities?
Absolutely. So there are 3 opportunities right now where alumni are invited back into the program. So on the kickoff day, they're invited to come in and welcome the new fellows into the fold, as well as 2 more opportunities throughout the year where we have socials where they're invited in. And a lot of times the alumni fellows are very interested, as we all are, in the capstone ideas. And so they often will also volunteer themselves to help a current fellow talk through their capstone project, to think through it, to look at it at a different angle. And actually, because we just finished up this last section of the capstone presentations, we had a few of the fellows who built out a more robust alumni program for us to consider as a program. And so they've got some really exciting ideas that they're actually invested in helping us bring forward. And so our alumni engagement will increase as the months go by.
Aaron, Leslie, anything to add? I'll just say that the way we think about this from a nomenclature perspective is that you are a fellow for good in both meanings of that wording.
So we did build a LinkedIn space for us to connect with one another. And otherwise, I know that I have been fortunate to connect with fellows outside of this work, both in running at them at events as well as intentional outreach.
Yeah, it's, I don't know if our cohort was, different than the other one, but I mean, everyone was very, very wanted to be connected. And so, yeah, the LinkedIn space. I have also connected with folks outside of the leadership circle program and one-on-ones. I see people at events. I've reached out for, questions, commentaries, support, and just checking in. How's it going? How's your project? How can I support? Just to make sure that everyone is still connected and seems to actively want to stay connected, which is great.
There's a question, Conway, about recording of sessions. I will say that, oh, go for it, Haley, sorry.
I just wanted to add really quick to that throughout the time that you are a part of the cohort, you are also invited to attend all of our Cranes events. So we do about 20 events throughout the year. So as our guest, you are invited to that. And there have been a number of fellows that have taken advantage of that. And it's been really great to see them outside of the monthly sessions.
Thank you for catching that. That's a huge perk of being a part of this. And you're also invited to our gatherings at the University of Chicago, and Conway curates those. So as we see relevant opportunities here, we're sending them out to the group. There's a question about recording of sessions. I will say that we do not have you participate live if you can't be there, and that's out of respect for people in the room. We just find it's easier if people in the room are talking to one another, if that resonates for folks. But I believe we do record and have materials if people miss a session. Conway, I'm looking to you on that front.
Yes, we typically don't record the sessions, but we do share any PowerPoints or recommended readings in our course site that you can look at afterwards. But the kinds of leaders that we invite into the room, many times they will preface their conversation with, can this be off the record? Because they really want to have kind of genuine leadership conversations and share on some of the kind of challenges and bits and pieces of leadership that might not want to go on record, but are useful as you think about how you lead in the city. So access to all of the materials for sure, but we've found that it doesn't make sense to do a recording of the conversations.
Thanks, Conway. And that's very much the room where it happens kind of description of what's taking place. And maybe consistent with Hamilton, we don't use modern technology then to get in the way of that idea. Any other questions that you may have? All right. Well, let me just say a huge thank you to Leslie and Aaron. I do want to say that the way these fellowships develop is that you get the very best people, and then that creates a role model and track record that then everything builds upon. So we're very grateful to have you as two of the amazing fellows in what was an extraordinary second cohort, building on an extraordinary first cohort, and to all of you out there, what we know will be an even more extraordinary third cohort, because it'll just keep building. And so we look forward to your candidacies. Haley has put her contact in here. I know Conway will be with a follow-up email. We are happy to have individual discussions with candidates. We know this is a big investment of time and resources, and we want you and your institution to feel that it is a good investment and a right fit for you. And I will just close by saying my utmost gratitude to our partners at Crain's. We literally could not do this without having the best journalists in our city as our partners, and we are very grateful to be in a shared mission of advancing the future of the city with you. So thank you all, and looking forward to the cohort ahead. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Everyone.